September 14th, 2014, from FirstEnergy Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. It was the New Orleans Saints at the Cleveland Browns. And what a game this was, as it was one for the ages for the dog pound. The New Orleans Saints started this game off, and they went 3 and out on their first drive. The Browns would punt as well as they gave the ball back to the Saints, but the Saints went 3 and out again as the Browns defense shut down Drew Brees and the high-powered offense of New Orleans. The Browns took over for their second drive of the game, and they drove downfield 9 plays and 51 yards in just under 4 minutes as Brian Hoyer found Miles Austin for a 3-yard touchdown pass to give the Browns the lead at 7-0. The Saints took over, and they would fail to do anything as they would punt the ball, as they really could not get anything moving on offense as this Browns defense was shutting down Drew Brees. The Browns then got the ball back, and they drove into field goal range, and Billy Cundiff hit a 32-yard field goal that put Cleveland ahead 10-0. The Saints would then take over with the possession, but again, they wouldn't really get far. They almost got to midfield, but they would be forced to punt once again, as they punted on every drive of the game at this point, if you could even call them drives. The Browns got the ball back, and they would punt. And now New Orleans got the ball back with about 8 minutes and 44 seconds left in the half. And they would drive all the way down into field goal range. For the first time in this game, they got all the way down into the red zone to the Cleveland 8-yard line. They lost a yard on 3rd and 1. They weren't able to pick up the first down to make it 1st and goal. And so instead, they would have to settle for a 27-yard field goal to put their first points of the board in this game. And that would make it 10-3 as they now trailed the Browns by 7 points. The Browns would then go 3 and out and give the ball right back to the Saints. So the Saints now had the ball with a little over 4 minutes left before halftime. And then we had a huge play 2 plays later. Tashaun Gipson intercepted Drew Brees, and he ran it back 62 yards to the house for a touchdown. The Browns went for 2. The conversion failed. And so it was 16-3 at this point in the game with about 3.5 minutes left to play in the first half. Drew Brees, undaunted by the troubles he had so far in this first half, would lead the Saints all the way down back to the red zone, and this time he would score as he passed the ball to Jimmy Graham for a 9-yard touchdown that made this game a 1-possession game, as the score was now 16-10 as the Saints trailed by 6 points going into the locker room at halftime. So Browns would come out of the locker room at halftime up by 6 points, and they had the ball, but they would have to punt on their first drive of the second half, and the Saints took over, and Drew Brees would lead the Saints down into Cleveland territory as he would throw a touchdown to Jimmy Graham, and that would give the Saints the lead by 1 point at 17-16. The Browns then took over, and they marched down the field as they responded with a scoring drive of their own as they went 14 plays and 80 yards in a little over 6 minutes, capped off by a 9-yard touchdown run from Terrence West that made the score 23-17 Browns. The Saints then took over with about 3 minutes left in the third, and they brought the quarter to a close, driving as they reached midfield. And they opened up the fourth, and they got all the way down to the Cleveland 23, and then Drew Brees threw a 20-yard pass to Jimmy Graham that set them up on the 3-yard line. 2 plays later, Mark Ingram punched it in from a yard out to make the score 24-23 as the Saints took the lead back by 1 point as these two teams were trading the lead. The Browns now took over with a little over 12 minutes left in the game, but they would be forced to punt and give the ball back to New Orleans. So Drew Brees took over with about 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter and a 1-point lead. But then, after driving all the way across midfield into the Cleveland 31-yard line, it was 3rd and 5. Drew Brees drops back to pass, and he's sacked by Carlos Dansby as he drops him for a 7-yard loss to force the punt and give the Browns one more chance, as there was now less than 3 minutes left on the game clock, and Brian Hoyer took over down by 1 on his own 4-yard line and the Browns marched 85 yards in 14 plays as they set up on the New Orleans 11-yard line after a 28-yard pass from Hoyer to Hawkins, and Billy Cundiff came out on the field to attempt a 29-yard field goal, and it was up, and it was good, and the Dog Pound wins. They upset the Saints. They had to kick off. There was a fumble on kickoff. Didn't matter. Time was expired. The Browns upset New Orleans in Cleveland. Drew Brees goes down, and the Cleveland Browns win 26-24. And in this game for the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees was 27 for 40 with 237 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Brian Hoyer was 24 for 40 with 204 yards passing and 1 touchdown. The leading rusher in this game was Mark Ingram with 83 yards off 11 carries, and he reached the end zone for a touchdown on the ground. The leading receiver was Jimmy Graham, who had 118 yards off of 10 receptions, and he had 2 touchdowns. West had 68 yards and 19 carries for a touchdown for the Browns, and Hawkins had 70 yards off of 6 receptions. But the big story here was just the tenacity of the defense of Cleveland. Carlos Dansby, 12 tackles. Joe Hayden, 10 tackles. Dansby also had a sack. They had 2 sacks overall for their defense. And Gipson had that interception as he came up clutch. And the Browns pulled this one off in a stunner, as very few gave them a chance to win. And they did it in the Dog Pound as they beat the Saints 26-24 here in Week 2.